presentation.
Uh-oh.
Okay, good evening, everybody. I will go ahead and call to order this regular session of the Auburn City Council for August 24th, 2020. Before we get started, I just want to mention, and Amy, if you have available the public comments graphic, we are accepting public comments for any of the items that are on the agenda as we advertised it. If you would like to send an email at any point with a public comment during the meeting, you may email us at publiccomment@auburn.ca.gov, and our city clerk does an amazing job staying on top of any last minute emails that come in. So I just wanted to again notify everyone that they can participate via email. So with that, I will go ahead and ask the clerk if she will please take the roll.
Councilmember Dowden Calvillo.
Present.
Amara.
Present.
Mackey.
Here.
Oakley.
Here.
And Mayor Berlant.
I am here. Thank you. If you all join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, good evening, everybody. It is nice to see everybody's faces today. We have a couple mayor's accommodations and a couple proclamations that I wanted to read you. Do we have our any guests tonight, Amy, joining us to accept the proclamations?
We do. We have quite a few people for both of them. So if it's okay, I'm going to bring in the guests for both proclamations because honestly, with Zoom, people's names show up over there and I'm not exactly sure who's here for which one. So I think we'll bring in the whole group and celebrate both proclamations, if that's okay with you, Mayor Berlant.
That sounds good. So as we bring in some guests this evening, and again, there's going to be a lot of us here. I'm just going to go ahead and get started because there are a lot of whereases. But the first one I wanted to do is a proclamation for the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution. I think this is a very important one, especially on the heels of a presidential election in just a couple months. So this proclamation, and my good friend Sandra Scott, who I can see helped put this proclamation together. Sandra is a former president of the Auburn Union School District. So Sandra, thank you very much for being here this evening. So I'm going to read this proclamation and then I'll let you say a few words. So the proclamation reads, whereas the bold, courageous, and powerful women who fought for the ratification of the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution on August 18th, 1920, deserve special celebration by the city of Auburn, especially on the 100th anniversary of its ratification in 2020. And whereas California was the 18th state to ratify the 19th Amendment on November 1st, 1919, and whereas California holds a special place in the women's suffrage history as thousands of California women advocated for the right to vote on the streets and in the newspapers and in the state capitol and throughout the great state. And whereas California women gained the right to vote with the passage of Amendment 8 to the Constitution in 1911, nearly a decade before women voted nationally. And whereas the 19th Amendment did not guarantee suffrage for all women, including Native Americans who did not gain that right until 1924, for Asian Pacific Island Americans, it didn't occur until 1952. African American and Latino Americans suffered voter suppression until the passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 and 1975. And whereas the fact that today women are active in local, I'll just quickly take a pause there and mention our wonderful and esteemed female colleagues on this council, local, state, and national government, and are running for office in unprecedented numbers, reminds us that we all follow in the footsteps of these resolute American suffragettes. And whereas the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution has played an important role in advancing the right for all women. Now I, Daniel Berlant, be it resolved, as the mayor of the city of Auburn, hereby recommend that residents in civic institutions celebrate the 100th anniversary of the passage and the ratification of the 19th Amendment, providing for women's suffrage to the Constitution of the United States honor the role of the ratification of the 19th Amendment in further promoting the core values of our democracy as promised by the Constitution of the United States. We reaffirm the opportunity for students and adults in this country to learn about and commemorate the efforts of the women's suffrage movement and the role of women in our democracy, and reaffirm our desire to continue to strengthen democratic participation and inspire future generations to cherish and preserve the historic precedent established under the 19th Amendment, issued the 24th of August, 2020. So with that, Sandra, is there a few words you would like to say about this historic commemoration? You're on mute, though.
Okay,
There
I'll
we
get
go.
the hang of this this Zoom thing.
We all have the same issue through, and we'll have it probably throughout the meeting. So welcome, Sandra.
Thank you, Daniel. It's nice to see you. I haven't seen you for a while. So, wow, this is wonderful. On behalf of the American Association of University Women, Auburn branch, and all women in Auburn, I accept this proclamation and appreciate the City Council highlighting the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment. We still have a lot of work to do to achieve gender equity for women, and AAUW is committed to being a positive change agent for women and girls. So thank you very much. We really appreciate this.
Great, Sandra. And here's a copy of that proclamation, which we will, after tonight's meeting, get you that official copy for your record. So
Great, thank you.
Yay.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
thank you again, Sandra. Great to see
Thank
you.
you.
And thank you for those who joined for that item. I'm going to move on. We do have one more resolution for this evening, and that is a proclamation for the Hunger Action Month. September, so we're right around the corner, is Hunger Action Month. So the proclamation reads, whereas Feeding America designated the month of September as Hunger Action Month, and hunger and poverty are issues of serious concern in the greater Auburn area. And whereas there are Auburn area individuals and families who have difficulty covering housing, utilities, transportation, medical, and food expenses on their income. And whereas this need is exacerbated by the existence of the COVID-19 pandemic. And whereas the Auburn Interfaith Food Closet provided groceries for 187,119 meals to 21,336 individuals in 2019. It is recognized there is an ongoing need in our community. And whereas these individuals live in areas between Immigrant Gap and Loomis, Forest Hill, and Lake of the Pines. Whereas these individuals need healthy food to reduce the risk of illness. And whereas the Adventist Community Services and the Auburn Salvation Army are also providing food assistance. Whereas these agencies rely on financial and food donations for our community, the city of Auburn encourages its residents and businesses to support these organizations. And whereas the Auburn Interfaith Food Closet is hosting a community food drive on Saturday, September 12th, 2020 from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at two central locations, one, the Pioneer United Methodist and the Auburn Presbyterian Church. Therefore, be it proclaimed that I, Daniel Berlant, Mayor of the City of Auburn, on behalf of the City Council, hereby recognize September as Hunger Action Month and encourage all of our citizens and businesses to support these efforts of our local food agencies to reduce hunger in our area. So Steve, and I don't know, Sandy, if you're on for this item too, but here is a copy of the proclamation declaring September as Hunger Action Month here in Auburn. And so I'd be happy to turn over the microphone to either one of you. Just make sure you're off mute.
Well, this is Jesse.
Real quick, I'm Steve from the Seventh-day Adventist, and I just want to thank this community for being such a willing community and supporting these programs that we have in place. And I want to remind everybody that there is a fantastic opportunity out there in the midst of a fire season and a terrible plague running through our neighborhoods to volunteer, and you can do it safely. So my plea today is twofold. Number one, thank you so much. Let's continue doing it. And number two, volunteer. We all need it. It's our biggest need right now is volunteers.
Great, thanks, Steve.
Thank
Sandy,
you.
we'll start with you, and then Jesse will come to you. So Sandy?
Okay. So I also want to thank you, Daniel, and all the firefighters for all of the work you guys are all doing. So thank you very much. And we know you're doing a great job. But as you said, Hunger Action Month is September. And, you know, it's strange to believe that there's 12% of people in Auburn who are in poverty and who need our help. That was before COVID-19 hit. So after COVID-19, the need is even greater. So 1 out of 8 children, 1 out of 11 individuals need help. And so the question was, can you do a food drive in the middle of a pandemic? We say yes, but you have to do it safely. So we're holding food drive two central locations, as you said, Pioneer Methodist and Auburn Presbyterian on September 12th. But we're also doing for the first time a virtual food drive on our website, or you can hold your own food drive. But I also have some good news to tell you. And that is, we've been wanting to have our own building and to be a permanent fixture in Auburn and not be renting or leasing. We have broken ground on a new building next to the Starbucks on Auburn Ravine Road. And so we're going to be having a groundbreaking ceremony soon. So we would like to invite you to come. And the other thing I want you to know is we started a brand new program this year, delivering groceries to homebound seniors, low-income homebound seniors. So we're trying to find more and more seniors to participate in that program. So if you know anyone who could use it, just have them call us. We'd be glad to do that. But thank you all for your support. We couldn't do and be what we are without the response of the community. So we depend on you.
Great, thanks, Sandy. I know we look forward to seeing your new building constructed, and I know all of us look forward to being there. So thank you. Jesse from the Salvation Army, it looks like you're joining us as well. Go ahead.
Oh, yes. Lieutenant Alini and myself, we just want to thank everyone and all the community members for their support. I mean, we couldn't do it without everyone's support. A lot of people think, oh, I'm just donating cans of beans or whatever, but it's actually more. It's speaking hope in unspeakable situations for many, many people. It helps them not worry about food and maybe focus on their children and help them with homework, especially now that most people are doing homeschooling. And so we just want to thank you for that, and then let everyone know that we are doing also like a drive-through drop-off food drive in September, and it will be on September 12th as well, but it will be a drop-off at the Salvation Army from 9 to 3 p.m. for any of those that want to drop off food during that time. And like always, the Salvation Army is here for the county and for the city, for whatever it may be. We have emergency disaster, whatever it may be, we're here to help. We do what we can, and the only qualification a person needs is that they need help. So.
Great, thank you. Steve, Sandy, Jesse, thank you guys very much for being here. We appreciate it. Sandra as well, thank you. These are 2 very important proclamations. We'll get them to you very soon. So with that, we will go ahead and continue on our agenda. And so our next item up here is the agenda approval. So this is this time set aside for council members and or the public to ask for the removal, postponement, or change of listed sequence of an agenda item. The agenda will be approved by a roll call of the council. Is there anybody who would like to move an item off the agenda? Okay, I'll ask the city clerk. Is there anything from the public on an agenda item?
There's not.
Okay, with that, I will go ahead and ask for approval of the agenda.
I'll move approval of the agenda.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, if we could please take the roll.
Councilmember Delvin Calvillo.
Aye.
Mara.
Yes.
Mackey.
Aye.
Oakley.
Yes.
Mayor Berlant.
Aye. Okay, the agenda stands. Moving on to the consent calendar. All matters listed on the consent calendar are considered to be routine in nature and will be approved by one blanket motion with a roll call vote. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a person specifically requests an item to be removed from the consent calendar for discussion and separate action. Any items removed will be considered after the motion to approve the consent calendar. I'll look to the council to see, is there any of the 4 items anybody would like to move? Okay, I will ask the city clerk, is there any items that the public has requested to be removed from the consent calendar?
There's not.
Okay, with that, if I can ask for a vote for the consent calendar.
I would like to move approval of the consent calendar, please.
I'll second it.
Okay, the clerk will please take the roll.
Councilmember Dowden Calvillo,
Aye.
Amara,
Yes.
Mackey,
Aye.
Oakley,
Yes.
Mayor Berlant.
And I am an aye as well. Okay, the consent calendar passes. Moving on to item number 5, this is public comment. As we mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, public comment has been accepted via email as well as telephone voice message, as was posted on the meeting in accordance with a number of executive orders due to COVID-19. We have been accepting public comment. And again, if you would like to make public comment throughout the meeting, you can send it to the public comment at auburn.ca.gov email. So I will turn it to the council first to see if there's any comments that the public would like. Actually, I'd like to start real quick, and I need to look. I ran into the butt lady of Auburn, and she is unable to obviously join us. So she gave me an update, but then she also left me a voicemail. So if you will bear with me here, she has now collected 1.78 million cigarettes. 1.78 million cigarettes. And I'll just note, I ran into her, I think it was on Monday of this week out in downtown, Monday or Tuesday. And it was already nearly 100 degrees and she was picking up cigarette butts in downtown. So anyway, she told me to tell you all hello. And she wanted to make sure we all knew she was continuing her community service project. So with that, I'll look to the council to see if anybody else has any items they'd like to make. Or comments that I can make. We'll start with Councilwoman Dowden Calvillo.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to applaud the city staff, our city manager, our fire and police chiefs. Over the past couple of weeks, we've had such extraordinary circumstances with regards to COVID, of course, but then to put the rolling blackouts and the heat wave and everything else, we had to look to open a cooling center and just things had to move very quickly. Strategic planning with regards to that. And I just really wanted to applaud their efforts and say thank you very much. We're dealing with the forest fires and the smoke. So there's always something, but we are resilient and we are Auburn strong. So again, just kudos to staff and thank you very much. And thank you to you, Mr. Mayor. I know you're wearing 2 hats right now. So I've been in your shoes. So I know they're tight right now.
Appreciate that. I am ready for a little bit of rest, as are all of our firefighters, even our own Auburn City firefighters. So thank you for acknowledging them and the work by our staff. Definitely, I think, echoed by all 4 of us. So John, please pass that along to all of the staff. Any other council members like to make a public comment? Okay, great. I will turn it then to the city clerk to see if there's any comment from the public.
I just checked to see if we received any live and we do not have any public comment.
Okay, great. Then let's go ahead and close public comment and we will move on into our agenda here into council business. So item number 6, the property tax revenue sharing agreement, Collins annexation. I believe, John, you are taking the lead on this, but I'll let you introduce it or pass it to whoever you are going to pass it to.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, thank you. Tonight, the Collins annexation has been before both the Planning Commission and City Council. In order for an annexation to actually proceed to the county LAFCO, it requires a tax sharing agreement. Staff's been working on this, and why don't I pass this along to Andy Heath, who's kind of taken the lead in what I think was a pretty successful negotiation. So let me hand it off to Andy. So I'll let him take it.
Great. Thank you, John. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. For the record, Andy Heath, the city's finance director. What I'd like to walk you through tonight is the negotiation that has been completed between the City of Auburn and Placer County staff with respect to a tax sharing agreement related to the Collins annexation. As you're aware, on July 22nd, 2019, the City Council approved the Collins Drive subdivision, which is a subdivision consisting of 45.3 acres south of Mount Vernon Road and west of the Union Pacific Railroad line. As part of this annexation, it is proposed that there will be 65 new single-family residences that will be built. As part of this approval, the City Council also approved resolution number 19-58, which authorized submission of an application to the Placer County Local Agency Formation Commission, otherwise known as LAFCO, for annexation of the project site into the City of Auburn. On September 27th, 2019, staff did submit an application to LAFCO. And before a hearing with LAFCO can be set on the annexation, a property tax sharing agreement must be negotiated between the county and the city in accordance with Revenue and Taxation Code, section number 99. Parties to this agreement are, of course, the City of Auburn and Placer County, where Placer County currently receives essentially all of the local shares of the tax components, the AB8 tax components that currently accrue as part of that tax rate area. All of that accrues to Placer County. The property tax sharing agreement is put in place recognizing that upon the annexation, upon the approval of the annexation, the City of Auburn will be responsible for providing a level of municipal service that they currently don't provide. Once we bring this area into the city, we'll be responsible for providing police, service, public works, community development, all of the essential services that are provided by a city. Staff has been working with Placer County and has determined that there are two components of the distribution of property tax, and this is the ad valorem portion, or the 1% of the property tax that's paid in that tax rate area. There are two components of that 1% that actually are going to be subject to the share. The first portion is the general fund portion, which Placer County currently gets, which represents about 30% of the full 1%. And then the other share is for County Service Area number 28, also known as CSA number 28, which is zone 193 of the fire zone of benefit, which receives about 8.5% of the 1% ad valorem share. So there's just under 39% that's actually going to be subject to the sharing agreement. The goal is to determine ultimately whether the costs that are identified by both parties, keeping in mind that, again, the city will start accruing costs as it annexes this area from a municipal perspective. And the county will also retain costs because the county provides countywide services to all residents of the county, regardless of whether or not they're in an incorporated area of the county. Things like election services, sheriff services, jail, those sorts of things, district attorney. So the goal, again, is to determine whether the costs are identified by both parties to the agreement are covered within the new tax share agreement. I'm happy to say that the amount that the city and the county actually came up with, we have initially agreed on a 50-50 split, which at least in my tenure in Auburn and working for the county also before, a 50-50 split is somewhat unheard of. But they do plan on taking this to their board tomorrow to get approval of this agreement as well. We have agreed on a 50-50 split of the tax with roughly 19.25% of both the base, that is the amount that's currently received as part of the property tax, and the incremental amount accruing to each side. So it'll be a straight split as we move forward of the existing tax and the incremental tax moving into the future. To do the analysis, to look at exactly how much of the services we're going to cost, you have to compare the revenues and the expenditures to make sure that, at least from a tax share perspective, this pencils. To the extent it doesn't, that's when you have things like community services districts come in, community facilities districts come in that actually help cover the cost that the developer places on parcels and the development process. So what we did in the city of Auburn was we looked at exactly how much tax revenue of the various types of tax revenue, realizing that more than property tax is going to actually come into the city as a result of this annexation, will come in based on those 65 new homes. All of these revenues and expenditures are based on full build out. So that means we looked at exactly what would be accruing assuming all 65 homes had been built. On the revenue side, we assumed an average taxable value of each home of $600,000. The developer believes this is a little bit conservative, but again, we wanted to keep this analysis conservative, purposely so. The increased City of Auburn population would be about 150 new residents, where 65 homes with 2.3 residents per home would bring in about 150 new people. There'd be increased sales taxes based on a 25% capture of an additional 37,500 in taxable purchases by each of the 65 homes. So each of the 65 homes would add additional sales tax to the sales tax base. And then we estimated that the city would capture 25% of that within the city limits. So again, that is conservative as well. We assumed a home turnover rate of 7 years, and there is a real property transfer tax that is received by the city every time a home turns over. So that is built into this analysis. And then obviously there's other city revenues that will accrue, things like franchise fees, licenses, business licenses, permits, building permits, that will grow proportionate to the increasing population as those services are rendered to the new constituents as part of the annexation. Property tax, of course, will grow. All of that area will be in the City of Auburn, and from the property tax perspective, we will receive 50% pursuant to the agreement that's on the table. From an expenditure perspective, all the expenditures that were used to do this analysis were based on the fiscal 19-20 budget. The most recent budget just finished. Didn't really want to look at 2021 yet, only because there's a lot of moving factors in 2021, and the last kind of real budget is 19-20, so we use that. From a public safety and public works perspective, we assumed that the costs for both of those departments, both personnel and non-personnel related materials and supplies services, would grow proportionate to the increase in population. So when you compare the number of people, 150, to the 14,000 or so that are already in Auburn, you take that same proportion and you apply it to those budgets, and you add that as a component of cost that would then be accrued as part of that annexation to the city. Departmental budgets for administration and community development grow based on discounted efficiency factors, recognizing that certain administrative functions, the city manager's office, the finance functions, those sorts of things don't grow proportionate to the population as certain new residents can be absorbed into what they already do. Public safety and public works materials and supplies costs also have an efficiency factor built into them at 65% that is built in. When you look at all of the revenues that will be accruing, and again, this is a handout that was part of the staff report, just summarizing it now, that and the expenditures that will be covered as part of the agreement, it's anticipated that about $100,915,000 will come into the general fund at full build out. And the total cost for the project will be about $97,498, leaving just over $3,000 on the table. So at least from a very baseline analysis perspective, for the City of Auburn, this tax share at 50-50 does pencil by about $3,000. One thing I wanted to mention is that of the additional $100,000 in revenue that will accrue based on the annexation, just under 80,000 of that, about 80%, is directly related to the property tax number. So you can see that the majority of this is coming from this agreement, and then the other revenues, sales tax and franchise fees and the such, make up the other roughly $20,000. So again, what I wanted to mention is that this does also pencil for Placer County. Placer County has performed a similar analysis, and this pencils for them as well, and they cover their countywide costs, which they'll be going through tomorrow with their board. At this point in time, staff is recommending that the 50-50 share be approved by the City Council, and that the annexation will move forward. So I'll stop there and answer any questions the council might have.
Great, thank you. I'll start with Councilwoman Amara. Go ahead.
Yes, Andy, thank you for the thoughtful analysis. I just had one quick question on page 70, item 6, number 3, the Auburn budget analysis.
Right.
I guess you came up with the 97,000, and that's based on the 33% administrative cost and the 75% development cost there. But you didn't, did you not factor in police, fire, and public works?
Yeah, all of that is in there. So if you look up at police, the 1920 budget was 4.2 million. And the revised budget based on the annexation analysis is 4.1 million. So that's been added in.
Oh, yeah.
So 2.6 of 2.7 million is added in and it goes down. So out of the $11.2 million in the fiscal 1920 budget, when you adjust everything out based on efficiency factors and the such, there's about 9.1 million that is used to compute the pro rata share for the additional 150 people being added to the population.
Okay, okay. And so there will be additional staff then that will be.
Correct.
Okay, okay, thank you.
This recognizes, yes.
Any other questions for Andy or for staff? Andy, yeah, Councilmember Spokley, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hey, Andy, you mentioned that the 50-50 split was somewhat unheard of. I share your opinion. In your tenure with the city of Auburn, we've had a few annexations. Do you have any recollection of what those typical splits were between the city and the county on taxes?
Yeah, when I worked for the county and the county executive office, they would typically be 80-20 or 70-30, with the high end going to the county.
Great. Thank you very much, Andy. Appreciate the report. Well done.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Andy or for staff? Okay, not seeing any. I'll go ahead and open this up for public comment.
There's no public comment on this item.
Okay, I will close public comment, bring it back to the council for discussion or for a motion.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I'll go ahead and move by resolution that we authorize the city manager to execute a property tax revenue sharing agreement between the city of Auburn and the county of Placer for the 45.3 acre development known as the Collins Drive subdivision.
I'll second that, but I do have a comment.
Okay, we have a first and a second. I will go ahead and let Councilmember Spokley go with your comment.
Yeah, I just again, you know, we have a partner in Placer County, and I want to thank them for working with us and our applicant on this annexation process. I do feel like it was a fair compromise with the 50-50 split. I just wanted to make a acknowledgement and thank the council, or excuse me, the Board of Supervisors for this negotiation.
Yes.
Yeah, well
Mr.
said.
Mayor, just to speak to my
Okay.
motion, I also wanted to say the same thing pretty much that Councilmember Spokley said, but I do appreciate the cooperation from the county on this issue. It's very unusual, as we've heard, and very grateful that we were able to come to this conclusion. So thank you.
Great. Any other comments? Okay, with that, if the clerk will please take the roll.
Councilmember Dowden Calvillo,
Aye.
O'Mara,
Yes.
Mackey, Spokley,
Yes.
and Mayor Berlant.
And I am I. Okay, the item passes unanimously. Thank you very much, Andy. Moving on to item number 7. This is the League of California Cities Virtual Annual Conference and selection of a voting delegate. As you saw in your packet, we have been asked to select a member, and I think we only have a few more days, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have it in front of me at the moment. But I just wanted to bring this to the council and have us move forward with appointing somebody. So is there anybody, I think we, and I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me here. We have a member, liaison to the League of California Cities, do we not? No, okay.
No, we usually vote on it every year.
Okay, thank you very much for that historical piece of that. So is there anybody who was planning, I know it's not an actual meeting this year, but rather a virtual meeting, but was there anybody who was, one, planning to attend, and two, are there any volunteers? I think maybe we could start there.
I'm sure that I will participate in some of the workshops. I know it's just a $50 registration fee, so it's pretty economical. I haven't seen the agenda, so I don't know. I don't know when all the sessions are that require voting, but generally our mayor does it. But
And I'll just tell you,
generally,
Mary is not able to attend this year, so I'm definitely open to any suggestions and alternatives. Yeah, Councilwoman Mackey, go ahead.
I think it's just on, I think they're just going to require any voting to be done at the General Assembly at Alice on October 9th at 11 o'clock. I think that's all that you'll have to, from what I understand.
The only portion that requires the voting happens on Friday. They said it's going to possibly be around 11 or 12 on that day. The schedule hasn't been set yet.
On October 9th?
The Friday of the conference, yes.
Yeah, I nominate Alice.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Is there anybody else who feels strongly? I didn't really hear any, but Alice, since you did mention you plan to maybe attend a couple of them, would you be able to attend the voting portion on October 9th?
Yes, I can make arrangements to ensure I can do that.
Okay, and we do have the ability to have up to 2 voting delegates. Is there anybody who would like to be a delegate, or excuse me, an alternate?
Alternate, yeah.
Okay, Councilmember Spokley, looks like you're willing to do that. And I don't mind, I just know this time of year through till we get to winter is a little bit busy for me. So if you're good with it, I would ask to be the 3rd delegate, but in that order. So I'll let somebody make a motion, but it sounds like Councilwoman Dowden-Calvillo will be our delegate, Councilmember Spokley our 2nd alternate, and I will be volunteer to be the 3rd alternate. So if there's no other discussion, I'll go ahead and open up to public comment. See if there's anybody from the public who'd like to comment on this item. And seeing a head shake, no? Okay. So we're going to backfold the council. Is there anybody who would like to make any additional comments or make a motion?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, go ahead.
To move staff recommendation, we'll move the nominations by resolution for the voting delegate and the 2 alternatives. Delegate being Alice, alternatives being me and you.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, if the clerk will please take the roll.
Councilmember Dowden-Calvillo.
Aye.
Amara.
Yes.
Mackey. Spokley.
Yes.
And Mayor Berlant.
Anyone that can't hear Councilwoman Mackey, I can't.
Yeah, I think we heard her vote, but yeah.
Hearing me?
No,
yes.
You're just sometimes quick on the on and off, but I think the clerk acknowledged your vote, but yeah, you're just really fast on the mute on and off. And then, sorry, Amy, did you capture all 5 members?
Yes.
Okay, with that sounds like we have 5 members, so that passes unanimously. Sorry, that was caught up there. Okay, moving on to item number 8 then. This is the adoption of the state public health officer orders and mandatory guidance is rules and regulations under Government Code Section 8634, Auburn Municipal Code Chapter 34, and other applicable laws. Just from the title of it, Gary, I know your finger is on it, but John, I will pass it to you to introduce the item.
Yeah, Mayor and Council. Obviously, the advent of COVID has brought a number of rules and guidance out there for various levels of enforcement and requirements for businesses and for folks within the Auburn community. Tonight, staff's bringing a resolution before you, which would essentially adopt both the county and the state orders related to COVID. And the reason for this is that ultimately the application of the requirements within the community fall upon the city. And what staff is recommending is the adoption of both the county and the state orders in order to allow enforcement through the city's administrative citation process. One of the things I'd like to emphasize before I turn it over to the city attorney is that this just simply becomes a tool and would probably be applicable to only the most egregious violators of some of the things that are out there. The city's not going to become the mass police. The city is not going to be out going looking for various things. But the one thing we have found with COVID is that in some cases there are some more challenging businesses that may require a little more attention on some things. So with that, why don't I turn it over to the city attorney? Maybe he can give the more technical aspects of the resolution before you.
Yeah, thank you, John, and Mayor and Council. So as John mentioned, this is about enforcement tools and options for enforcing these orders. There are currently 2 state health officer orders and 1 guidance, which is actually mandatory regarding face coverings. The Placer County orders expired, as the resolution notes, and according to Placer County, those were allowed to expire to avoid confusion between the local orders and the state orders. The governor has adopted the state public health officer orders under his executive power under the Emergency Services Act. The city council also has powers under the Emergency Services Act to adopt rules and regulations. The Auburn Municipal Code gives that same authority to the council in addition to state law. Right now, these orders can be enforced as a violation of state law as a misdemeanor, which is criminal, and would have a process through the district attorney in that process. As an alternative, adopting a rule or regulation makes it a violation of the Auburn Municipal Code that can be enforced administratively through penalties. So it's really about having an additional tool other than the misdemeanor enforcement. That process, if an administrative citation is issued, includes a right to appeal to a hearing officer, present evidence, be represented. So there is due process internally, just like any other code violation. So code enforcement officer at the city is authorized to enforce the municipal code. This would allow enforcement of these orders in the same way that the Auburn Municipal Code is enforced in any other context. So I'm happy to answer any specific questions or go into more detail if the council would like.
Great, thank you very much, Gary. Yes, Councilwoman Dowden-Calvillo, go ahead.
Just a quick question first. Gary, I know there's an internal hearing that's allowed and there's a hearing officer that oversees. Who is that hearing officer? Is that someone that we contract out with?
Yes, the city typically brings in a neutral hearing officer. In the past, they've used California hearing officers, which was formerly associated with the McGeorge School of Law as attorneys to come in. It could technically be done by not bringing an outside person, but that's always been the city's practice, and I don't see any reason why the city wouldn't do it here.
And then is that decision final, or is it is the decision of the hearing officer appealable to the council?
Decision of the hearing officer is final, and so from there it would need to go to court.
Court. Okay, thank you.
Other questions from the council? So, John, I have a question. Is there any kind of planning or thoughts that city staff have as far as how they would use this tool, or in the past, you know, if they had the tool earlier, are there any examples that you would give where you know, we may have gone down this route?
Yeah, there really are a couple of things. First has to do with, you know, you look at things that we could be looking at, obviously, restaurants and signage, the enforcement of face masks, those types of things. We do receive various types of complaints that where those would go. Ultimately, though, at this point, one thing that's very obvious in Auburn is that we have very good businesses who are being very good actors. But in some cases, there are some that may go down, especially the road where there might be people allowing gatherings or allowing things to happen with inside the business where those types of things are not yet approved. So that would give us a chance. You know, I like to tell everybody, and I use an example of how we coach soccer referees. There's really a 3-step process when you referee a soccer game. You ask them to follow the rules. The second is you tell them to follow the rules. And then the third option is that in soccer, we say that's when you toss them, but we won't do that. What we will do is we will do some type of an enforcement action. In this case, we have the ability to have the administrative citation. As Councilmember Dowden Cavillo asked, there is a hearing process that they would go through. So in essence, there is really probably a 5-step education process. This all comes in to simply giving us the tools that if we had to go to the final option to actually do an enforcement action against them. Right now, we really don't have that unless you were going to a misdemeanor and turning it over to the district attorney's office, which is a whole different set of rules. So in essence, what this is it's the education tool. And as I stress, it will be for only the most egregious violations. As we have been working with folks in Auburn, the various businesses, no problems. But it does give us that last option.
And correct me if I'm wrong, John, but the other cities in our county have taken this action and are able to use it.
Yes, they have. And as they are doing things, again, one of the things that you want within the county is consistency and predictability in various things, and the ability to tell folks, look at, there's kind of a quid pro quo. If you follow the guidance, we are not going to enforce this. Alternatively, if you don't follow it, we will enforce it. Again, predictable actions for things that people do or don't do.
Great, thank you. Councilwoman Amaro, then we'll come back to Councilwoman Downing Calvillo.
I just have a quick question for Attorney Gary. And my question is, if there is an egregious situation and the city didn't act and someone became, severely harmed, would the city be liable in that regard?
No. And the reason for that is the Government Claims Act gives a series of immunities to the city, one of which is immunity for discretionary acts or not taking discretionary acts. And this would fall pretty squarely in that.
As a discretionary act by not enforcing?
Correct. Yes, just like the police are not liable for enforcing a law or not enforcing a law. Same concept here.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Downing Calvillo, go ahead.
Yes, I appreciate that we want to add this as a tool in our toolkit and the fact that the other jurisdictions are doing the same. I just really want to stress that I would want this only utilized in the most egregious of situations. And, I think that I'm sure my colleagues would agree that we would want to be notified when that's about to happen, just so that we don't, we're not blindsided. So I think that's pretty important. And also that you have very strong documentation of the visits, the dates that you've gone to the business, that you've had the discussions. Everything really needs to be, especially if this is, potential for hearing officer, that of course. I just really want a very detailed record so that, we're protected in that sense. But really, again, the most egregious of situations and a heads up to the council right before it happens so that we don't get blindsided.
Any other questions? Yeah, Councilwoman Mackey, go ahead.
Almost echoed exactly what I was going to say, but I do want to ask one other thing besides that. John, I know you've only been here a couple of weeks, but have there been any cases where this could have been used at some point in our city? Has there been any difficult groups of people that we had trouble separating and telling to go home or whatever? Have there been problems?
Yeah, you know, I can't give you an example. This is, I've only been here 2 weeks, but what I can tell you is that the having this type of tool actually reduces the idea that we're going to have these types of problems. And I don't want to say that there's just a carrot and stick mentality on things, but in this case, you know, we do have some reports of some businesses maybe stretching some things. Our ability to educate on all the guidance, to communicate with them what they can and shouldn't be doing, and then obviously having this. So I can't give you something directly offhand, but I can tell you that as far as putting these types of things in place will benefit moving forward. And as Councilmember Dowden Kavia pointed out, you know, this is a documented process. It's not something that is just whip out the citation book and give them something. It requires documentation, it requires notice. There's a multi-step process in doing this. So our ability to share with the council and the community if we're having problems, we would probably point that out in some type of form, whether it would be in the city manager's report that we were having some issues, and we would direct that. Almost every Friday, we've been having a workshop where the main topic is COVID, where we're working with the business associations and talking with them. And the thing that's really nice is that there's very frank, honest discussions that are happening. You know, the best pressure is peer pressure on local businesses. So our ability to have a very multi-phased education and also have a little bit of enforcement tool will benefit us.
Any other questions before we go to public comment? Okay, seeing none, I'll go ahead and ask the city clerk to see if there's any public comment on this item.
There is no public comment.
Great, then I'm going to bring it back to the council for comments, and so I'll bring it to Vice Mayor Spokley first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's been stated a couple of times in the question part of our hearing here, but I just want to reiterate that I hope city staff uses this only as a last resort. We need to focus on education and outreach to make sure that we're doing all we can to help our businesses, not hit them with a stick. Let's do what we can to help our businesses try to survive through this incredible time that we're all dealing with. So that I want to make sure the community hears. We're not doing this to give us a new tool to further, you know, harm businesses. We're doing this only as an absolute last resort.
Great, thank you. Any other comments? Well, I will make a comment here. I have personally struggled with this quite a bit, you know, especially as we have released, you know, major offenders out of jail and even out of prison, and really kind of changed over the last several months our judicial system. That how do we then turn around and penalize those for not wearing a face mask? And so it's a big struggle. But then on the other hand, you know, especially here as of recent, you know, I've talked to a number of business owners and say, listen, I'm following all the rules and I'm losing money. And my competitor ignores the rules and they have a business advantage and nothing happens to them. And so, you know, we're kind of stuck in this rock and this hard place. And I completely agree with everything that was said, that it has to be a last resort. It has to only be for those most egregious cases. And I think that we have to continue, as we'll talk here in a bit in our COVID-19 update, have to continue to advocate for some more reasonable changes to the guidelines. But I guess I don't see this as being that our police are going to become the face mask police, but rather when we have businesses particular that are putting their customers and our residents in harm's way because of their actions, that this becomes a tool if they don't want to listen to the education that we're providing them. I think we've come to this point that we at least need to be consistent with the cities around us for, again, the most egregious tools. So I appreciate, John, you bringing this item forward, and again, do look forward to open communication though with our community before we're really taking much action against people. So any other comments by the council? If not, I'll go ahead and ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, by resolution, adopt the state public health officer orders and mandatory guidance as rules and regulations under the Government Code Section 86, Municipal Code Chapter 34, and other applicable law.
Is there a second? Okay.
I'll second.
Councilwoman Mackey did voice it. So we have first and a second. Any last minute comments? Seeing none, go ahead and take the roll, please.
Councilmember Dowden Calvillo.
Aye.
Amara.
Yes.
Mackey. Stokely.
Yes.
Mayor Verland.
And I am an aye as well. I'm sorry if you hear all that pinging. My email is crazy today, so my apologies. I'm doing my best to go back and forth on mute here. The adoption of the state public health orders and mandatory guidance passes unanimously. Moving on to item number 9. This is our city manager's report. John, I will turn it to you, and glad to see you at the beginning of week 3, though I know you have been wearing a couple hats. So, thank you as well for, your assistance as your former city is in crisis and has had some pretty major losses with fires. And so I know you are assisting them in your time off here. So, but I'll turn it to you.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, I'd like to talk about some things that I think are really exciting about our Auburn organization. Today, I sat in a meeting with our public safety departments, both police and fire, where they went through a review of the fire at I-80 in Lincoln. And they went through a full after action review. Very well done. We had folks from Placer Sheriff there, dispatch, most of the people that were on Auburn Fire was in there, and both chiefs. And it was a very well done walkthrough. And, the one thing as we have different tools and things like the Everbridge notification system, how we go about facilitating things like an evacuation. And today was a really good discussion by the staff, identifying the things that they thought went well. They identified things that could be improved upon, and they actually started outlining the actions for moving forward. It was a wonderful meeting for me because as I get to know the staff, I get to see the culture of how we address various things. It was an opportunity for me to see the leadership of our organization from top to bottom evaluating things. And I can tell you, as various things come up, as somebody who has evacuated in the last 10 years, I have literally enacted 10 different evacuations. It's something that you constantly are learning on. You're always refining. And as we look for how Auburn is going to address it, I have a lot of confidence that we are going to get better every single time. And it starts with the people. They acknowledge good things. They acknowledge things that need to be improved. One of the things that we are looking at, hopefully we are not in the same position as the mayor's day job of launching emergency operations in the greater Auburn area. I can tell you that from the staff perspective, we are looking at emergency operations, who does what, looking at our various emergency plans, looking to update those. We are talking with Placer County to try and renew various things. So Look for this to be an item that in the coming months will be coming before the city council as an information item on overall emergency operations and preparedness. Our firefighters from Auburn Fire are currently, they're driving all over the state. They were at a fire down in Glendora. They are now coming up to back closer to home in Tuolumne County for a fire. So my understanding is that we go through a 14-day cycle and then change everybody out. So there will be a crew changed out, I think, within the next week or so on things. Overall, I will just tell you, my first 2 weeks on the job is like the ultimate all-you-can-eat buffet of everything that we do. Airport, wastewater, water, parks, Pilates, you name it. I'm getting a dose of absolutely everything. But probably one of the number one things that I've been very impressed with is the engagement of the business community. As we talk about COVID and our response to that, it really is going to take, someone used the word resilience tonight. There's going to take a lot of that. And as we've worked with the various business associations, it's tremendous. There are motivated people. Yesterday, I had a chance to chat it up with a number of them, and they are all positive, all looking forward, all people that are looking to invest in Auburn. And you can't ask for anything better than that. Finally, I've sat in on a lot of meetings, more Zoom meetings than I really care to ever admit, and I wish I had bought stock. But one thing, the engagement of our community. I've been on the endurance committee, on the economic committee, the airport committee, talking about things. Oh my goodness. Am I going to have to get up to speed, because there's a lot of people that are very much experts in all which is Auburn, and you can't ask for more than that, because good people committed to making the community great. So overall, a great first 2 weeks, and like I said, I'm learning a lot about a lot of different things. Good stuff all the way around. Thank you.
Great, thank you, John. Any questions for the city manager? Great, John. I'll just say appreciate you recognizing the firefighters who are staffing engines. It is so nice that we have the additional staffing that we do to be able to provide this mutual aid, because, man, when we have a fire in Auburn, I sure hope they all come like we are responding and coming to them. So thank you to that. Chief Spencer, my guest, is in the meeting waiting room. Chief, thank you as well. So with that, let's go ahead and move on to item number 10, the COVID-19 update. I have a couple items. John, I'll just start off with you, okay? I wanted to let you know, and I did share with the council and wanted to apologize, as I did to each of you individually. I had forwarded a letter to the council on Saturday, but my email box was full, and so it apparently didn't go out. But I joined the other mayors of the other 4 cities, as well as the town of Loomis and Colfax, and our board of supervisors in a letter to the state's public health officer requesting an immediate open of the indoor operations, not just restaurants, but gyms, salons, etc., laying out a number of reasons. The first one being the fact that we've reduced the spread of the virus. Number 2, the fact that we've been removed from the monitoring list. And then number 3, the fact that our air quality is in the unhealthy range. Some of the most unhealthy air in our region has been sitting over Auburn. And so all of the mayors and our Board of Supervisors chair and our District 5 Board of Supervisor all agree that we really need the state and demanded that the state allow us to reopen them. We met with the public health officer on Friday, expressing the same concern. She too has sent a letter. The Board of Supervisors as a body has sent a letter as well. And I think we'll discuss, as we did on Friday, whether this council wants to send a letter as well. But again, I just wanted to, I did post it to my Facebook for the public to read it. Apologize again that the council did not get a copy because it was in the email box, but just wanted to mention that for those that are wondering from the public that we discussed on Friday, the county was removed from the monitoring list last week. We are in the 14-day kind of wait period until restrictions can come off. But since we were added to the monitoring list, the rules changed. And the items that were the sectors that were closed because of them, we were added to the monitoring list, eventually became a public health order that that continued the closure. So even though we're off the monitoring list, those indoor operations can still not open. So in my mind, it's kind of like we've moved the goalpost a little bit from what we were told. And so that is a little bit of a misnomer. In reality, the only thing that happens after the 14 days ends is schools are allowed to reopen to in-classroom instruction with modifications. And I know Councilwoman Dowding Calvillo sits on a private school board as well and probably has more, but the school districts that I'm aware of cannot meet the requirements that the state has set in order to return to the in-person instruction. So the likelihood of that happening when the 14 days ends, which is, I believe, September 2nd, is very unlikely. So in reality, coming off the monitoring list at this point has really meant nothing specifically, unless, again, you're in education, and then even then, maybe not. So just wanted to mention that to the group. We are planning to hold our economic recovery workshop we had for the public who didn't participate. We had a really good meeting on Friday to discuss a number of items, expanded outdoor dining, which a number of individuals here on this council joined business leaders to set up more outdoor dining in the upper portion of Lincoln Way. So some good work being there as well. So just wanted to at least update you. We will hold again another workshop this Friday to hopefully learn more about the latest of the county, the mayors, and anybody else's attempts to try to reason with the state to allow us to ease up on some of those restrictions. So that is my real quick portion of the update. But John, I'll turn it over to you for items from the city.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, one of the things I have drafted, kind of spinning off of what the mayor just discussed, was a letter from the city council to the state health, the interim state health officer regarding this topic. The idea is that we would at least let Auburn be heard in trying to get reopening. The mayor points out where our air quality index is as of right now. We are in the unhealthful range. So even for folks who would like to go and patronize a restaurant, or even go and get their hair cut outside, if that really happens, it would not be healthy for them. So we've put together an overall, I've provided a draft copy. I don't know if Amy wants to show it. Amy, can you share it just on the screen?
You know, one item, Amy, if you don't mind, one item on this, John, my suggestion would be that each council member send you feedback directly on this letter, just so that we can kind of change the tone of it. Now that the county letter has gone out, and again, because the council wasn't able to see what the mayor's and Board of Supervisors letter included, and so that we can try to mirror the letters and be more consistent, I would ask, and I'll look for the rest of the council's affirmation, but I would ask that we not review the draft today, but rather send you some input directly, and then the council, you guys can talk and we can figure out the steps we want to do and the timeline of how we want to get this out. But I just think it might be easier, instead of trying to wordsmith a letter in public, John. And again, no fault of yours. I think you followed through very well with the direction we gave you to bring this back to us on Friday. But I guess I would just ask that we continue to draft it individually. So that's
Yeah,
my 2
and-
cents. I don't mean, on this item, I'll pause real quick and just make sure the council doesn't want to go other directions. And if they do, we can always bring the letter back on the screen.
Mr.
Yeah,
Mayor,
Councilor- go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I'm fine with that. And I do have some suggestions for you, John, so I'll get those to you. I wasn't able to
Okay.
get them to you before the meeting. So thank you, but I'll do it very rapidly.
Councilwoman Mackey.
Just want to say that no matter what the suggestions are that we have, that we get this letter out as soon as possible.
Okay, agreed. Councilmember Spokley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. John and I had a long conversation this afternoon, and I've gotten him my comments. I think I heard Cheryl say this letter needs to get out as soon as possible, and I completely agree with that. So however we're going to coordinate getting this signed, whether it's the 5 of us or however we want to do that, I do believe we need to get this letter out as quickly as possible. Our businesses need it.
Any other comments from the council on the letter? So it sounds like John will give you direction to continue to take some feedback as you've gotten, and that you'll get here, and I'll let you regroup tomorrow to work to get our signatures on it to have it sent out. Does that work for you, John, and the group?
Yeah, absolutely it does. Actually, why don't we do this? How about comments by noon tomorrow to me, and then somehow we'll get everybody's signatures, and we'll send this through the cybersphere by close of business tomorrow.
Great.
John, would you send it to me in Word, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
John, I'll bring it back to you for the update, but I just want to make sure, any other council members have any other items on the letter? Okay, and John, I would just concur that I think timeliness is critical at this point, just because the air quality is really not going to get any better. So appreciate your efforts so far. So I'll turn it back to you though for any other COVID-19 city updates.
I think probably the one thing I'd like to point out, we have enough PPE here as far as hand sanitizer and face masks. If hand sanitizer becomes gold, we are the richest city around. So one of the things I know is that we are coordinating with the various business associations, for private residences. If people out there need some hand sanitizer, come on by. We've got plenty of it. Literally, our city public works, working with the chamber, went and picked up an entire pallet of hand sanitizer. So my guess is that we probably have at least 1 or 2 face masks for every Auburn resident, and probably hand sanitizer per household. So we have plenty of that to get out. And then finally, as far as everything COVID, we will be monitoring where things come out. I know that by the end of this week, we will be entering the phase where we may be coming off of the monitoring list. Once that happens, we'll start finding out what the rules and guidance are for all businesses within Auburn, and we will try and start to push that information as soon as we can, obviously working with the county and their folks on things. That's the report.
Great, thank you, John. I would just add, we are off the monitoring list. It's now September 2nd that any of those restrictions may take into effect. One question for you, John, and maybe for Amy. You had mentioned that you have oodles and oodles of hand sanitizer. Is there a plan for when the public may be able to pick that up? Is there any distribution times set, or is that still in the works?
Well, the chamber has 2 dates this week that they're distributing to businesses, and Jackie's working on outreach to individuals to do some sort of a drive up situation or a drive through where you can just drive through and receive hand sanitizer. We don't have as much masks maybe as we do hand sanitizer. She wants to work on a situation where it's easy for the people to just drive through and receive some. So that we're looking at that possibly in the next week or so.
Great, thank you. And we'll work to get that out to our residents. One last item I forgot to mention on COVID-19, I just wanted to bring up. Last week, I joined the Chamber of Commerce for a town hall meeting with their business owners to discuss the Placer Shares program and the $8 million that's available, and now the $1.something million available for restaurants and bars. So almost $10 million available in grant money for businesses, nonprofits, and restaurants and bars. The Chamber is going to be holding a second town hall meeting this Thursday at 8:30 a.m. Via Zoom. You can get that on the Auburn Chamber's website. I was only able to attend the first few minutes. I don't know if anybody else was able to attend, but it did sound like there were about 50 participants on that call, and just trying to get the information out to our business owners and our nonprofits to walk them through the grant program, the application, because the applications did open today, I believe. It's not a first come, first serve, so there's 2 weeks. Tomorrow, thank you.
Tomorrow.
Opens tomorrow. So it's still 2 weeks to get applications in, and it's not first come, first serve. So just want to get that across. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and move on to item number 11 and our city council reports. And I'm just going to go in order the way I see you. So Councilwoman Mackey, any reports for today?
Quickly, I will tell you that we had a state theater meeting, and we're hanging in there. We're going to apply for shares grants. We are a business, but we're also a nonprofit. So we're trying to determine which would be best to apply for, because we are in category 1 as a business, category 2 as a nonprofit. So we're not sure yet, but Barbara, our business manager, is looking into that. But we're doing pretty good. We've gotten a lot of online donations and a lot of people that are trying to help us out. So that's been good. We're going to have a virtual fundraiser, and I'll explain that when we get closer. We're also going to have a city council. We're going to have a candidates night or evening or something in September. And we haven't made a date for that yet, but we'll let you know about that. I think the candidates are actually going to be asked to come to the theater, and then we would be Zooming so they can interact with each other, and we would be Zooming everybody else who's attending. So it would be virtual, but with the candidates in the theater. So not exactly sure exactly how it's going to work, but we're working on that. So we need some candidate forums, because a lot of people aren't on social media, and a lot of people, they want to meet their candidates. So anyway, we had a Pioneer board meeting. We set up, I was gonna call you, Matt, but now I'm just gonna tell you because I volunteered you for something all next year. That's if you're going to be if you're going to appoint yourself to Pioneer, which all of us are hoping you will, since you have been connected to Pioneer so well this year as my alternate. And so we have that Don Eckert, our new executive director, has set up a budget and finance committee, and it's an audit committee. And so the city of Auburn has a seat on it. So I probably will attend the first meeting, but I would really like you to attend the second meeting, and that would be while you are still an alternate, because these next 2 meetings are going to be important as far as the budget and financing. There was a lot of discussion about the CAISO and the energy, shortage that we had. And there's a lot of butting of heads between CAISO, PG&E, Pioneer, PUC, and all of that. And I won't get into all that minutia tonight, but a lot of finger pointing, I might add. So it's kind of interesting, though, that one thing that was said during our meeting during the report was that we didn't have enough wind. We usually have 29% renewables during the day. That's our requirement. 30% is the requirement. We usually have 29 or 30%. Well, when the fire started, there wasn't any sun, and then there wasn't any wind, and then they didn't have the gas generators up and running fast enough. So there was I think something like, I don't know, 40 megawatts that they couldn't get a hold of. So that's why they had the rolling blackouts, because there wasn't enough time to get the energy up and running when the solar and the wind went down. So it was, they didn't say exactly that way, but that's how I took it. Anyway, I already sent you a bunch of emails about CAISO and their statements, and I know we've all been sharing that stuff. So hopefully it'll get better next time. That was the bottom line. Anyway, and Matt, you can report on EDC. I'll let you do that. We had a visitor. Was it John? John was at our last EDC meeting, right? Were you, John? Yeah.
John was there.
Yeah. Oh, were you there, Matt? You might not have been there.
I was not there. So John will have to give us a report on EDC.
He did a good job. He did a good overview. They were very curious about what he could do as far as economic development. And he gave a really good overview of what he thinks we need and what he has done a little bit. He doesn't brag too much. I bragged about you, John, before you got there. So anyway, that's my report for tonight. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Councilwoman Moore. And you are on mute.
Thank you, Berlin. I attended virtually the mosquito vector meeting, and we have a $5 million operating budget. Basically went through that, and it was very interesting. The West Nile virus is alive and well, and they work on mosquito pools, and I'm learning all the vocabulary. It's very scientific. And, I also attended the committee to keep the Auburn Ravine unpolluted, and that was interesting. There's quite a few in attendance that from basically the individuals that spoke had a lot of knowledge, more than I do, with regard to how restaurants should dispose of grease and the pollution that it causes. I've never been involved in the restaurant business, so it's very interesting. And they're looking into educating the business owners, the restaurant business owners, and that should help the situation quite a bit. So they're on an educational path right now, and I found it very, very interesting and uplifting in that they're trying to solve a problem that has been very problematic in terms of there's been a constant grease pollution going through our beautiful little ravine that goes through Auburn. And I was able to actually visit, and I forgot the name of a home that's where it's not the ravine, but it's another little tributary that goes into the ravine, and that's over off of behind Aeolia over there. If you take the trail that goes toward the Alice probably knows that trail that goes into town, it goes by the pool back there. Anyway, there's been grease in that area as well. So we were able to get some homeowners up there involved, and so we're working from the source to the back end. So it's quite an interesting group, and they're going to meet again in another month, September 15th, if anybody else wants to come, or September 14th, Monday. And then they also asked me, another group, actually Jim Ferris from ARD, wanted me to extend an offer, and I think Cheryl probably already has gone there. I don't know if anyone else has, and that is the tour of the Haynes Ranch in Pine Valley. I actually went to the tour with Jim Holmes, and supervisors have gone. It's a wonderful tour. I didn't know that, blackberries actually take up so much water, and he's eliminated the blackberries and been able to, you just have to see it. It's an amazing, fun tour. You're outside walking. So if anybody wants to go, I would encourage you to go. It's educational, September 12th. And it's at, I can give you directions, and I believe it's in the, I'm not sure what time. But I'll provide all that with anybody that wants to go. Give me your information. And I have an ARD meeting on Thursday, DBA Wednesday, and I think Wednesday and Thursday. And these are all virtual. So that's my report.
Great, thank you very much. Councilwoman Downing Calvillo.
Yes, thank you very much. Sandy, I would be interested in that information. So if you would send that my way, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
We had a meeting, the Auburn Endurance Capital of the World Committee. And just to give the council a heads up, the committee voted to propose some changes to the enabling resolution. Mostly they're clarifying changes, so I expect that those will be coming forward to us for our consideration at an upcoming meeting. John was there, so he had an opportunity to listen in to the meeting. And knows that that is coming as well. So we can look for that at an upcoming council meeting as an action item. There will be another virtual endurance event coming up. Paolo from the aid station is proposing, or actually received approval, to utilize the Auburn Endurance Capital of the World logo and phrase for a 100-mile virtual run. So that's going to occur, I think, September 8th through October 8th. And so participants will have a whole month to run or walk 100 miles. So I think John and I are going to sign up. I know I'm going to sign up. So we'll be out there participating as well. I would challenge my colleagues. We got a whole month, 30 days to make 100 miles. And then that could really be, doesn't have to be running. It can be walking, biking, but in any event. So that's.
I'm assuming driving doesn't count.
No driving.
All right. I might be out.
Swimming, Alice, does that count?
Huh?
Swimming.
Oh.
Yes, yes, it does.
Swimming can
Okay.
count.
I doubt if
But
I
you
can
have
swim
to,
100
you have to somehow figure out your mileage. So you'll have to, we'll leave that up to you, Cheryl. So that's coming up, which is a good times. I appreciate that we're able to celebrate the endurance capital of the world. Not a lot of in-person events, very, very few. And so at least we have the virtual events to participate in. There was also a meeting of the 555 airport committee. And it was, John also attended that with me. They talked about, they're putting together an electronic complaint form, which was pretty interesting, for folks that wanted to complain about this, that, or the other thing. And I know they're working with the fire chief on that as well. They talked about noise abatement. They received the same presentation that their social arm received last month, which I talked to you about. And I think that we'll probably schedule that presentation to this council sometime in the future, just so that you can see what, I mean, they've done extensive surveying of the noise, and they've pretty much figured out what's happening and how to correct it. So they will continue to work on that. They also were talking about some issues they have with dogs and unattended children on the airport. So they're looking to put some signage up to ensure that people are keeping track of their dogs and their children when they're at the airport. It's not a good, safe place to have either just running around. It is an airport, so they did discuss that. And that is all that I have to report.
Great, thank you very much. Vice Mayor Buckley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Placer County Flood Control and Water Conservation District meeting was once again canceled. I think we've had cancellations the last 3 or 4 months. So not sure what's happening there, but lots of cancellations. The SACOG group was very active this last month. the Land Use and Natural Resource Subcommittee that I chair had a very long meeting earlier in the month. We talked primarily about Green Means Go program and the potential opportunities once we finally secure legislative funding for the program, and what opportunities we might have in our city. So John, I didn't bring that up in our long call today, but I'll add that to our list next time we chat to go over, because I do believe there are opportunities there for us. The board, the other item that we talked at committee level was the 2-year funding round for the 4 county regions. That does not include Placer County. We have PCTPA that handles all of the federal and state funding resources and distributes the monies out to various projects in the county. The 4 county area, Sacramento County, Yolo County, and 2 other counties, not including Placer County, are in a bit of a conversation about how this funding round's going to, how the funds are going to be distributed in this 2-year funding round. They are all, just like Auburn, they are all strapped with the significant reduction in sales tax revenues in their general funds for any of their proposed projects. So there's kind of a heightened level of conversation going on.
That's amazing. Impressive.
We will continue to monitor that, and I'll keep the council briefed on that, but it potentially has some significance as it relates to the organization as a whole moving forward. Potentially some big things that might be brewing as it relates to SACOG. But again, I'll stay on it and keep the council apprised as things develop there. And I was not able to make the EDC meeting this month, but I know John was able to be there, so I apologize for that. But that concludes my committee reports.
Great, thank you. The only one I have to report on is the Placer County Air Board met, and I have some exciting items that we discussed that actually really could have some value to us in Auburn. The Air District has always been very involved in fire mitigation efforts and clean energy related to biomass, et cetera. It's really been on the forefront of that. And so there was a recent case down in San Diego related to offset carbon development requirements that essentially strengthened and kind of streamlined that when developments are occurring when development is occurring, they are able to buy off some of their climate credits by funding fuel reduction efforts and fire prevention efforts. So the Placer County Air Pollution Control District will be putting together a program in Placer County to offer to the cities and to the county that if development is occurring and these offset credits are needed, they can put money towards fuel breaks. And I, of course, jumped up in front of the line to say, we will take your developer money. We will put fuel breaks in our community because obviously, down in the valley and in South Placer, there's fuel breaks. It is not a mitigation for them, but because we're all in the same air region, it still has an impact. So talk to our fire chief and trying to work with connecting the air control officer and our fire chief to see how can we potentially get some developer dollars to help fuel reduction. Obviously Colfax was second in line after me to try to do that as well. So that's really exciting, and I think some unique opportunities for us. They also discussed the district's priority to apply for fire prevention grant dollars, whether it be federal or even state. And so I really tried to emphasize the need to coordinate those efforts. The county FireWise group is made up of all the different fire districts and fire safe councils. And a lot of the grants are really coordinated through that Fire Alliance. And so I really stress that the Air District do that as well. Mention that to our fire chief, because if we can kind of work together and collaborate, there may be some benefit to us here in Auburn on that. So that was exciting for sure. So I see Councilwoman Mackey, maybe we're going to talk about the same thing. Fire Safe Council met on Friday, and at the very last minute, I was unable to chair that. So our vice chair did. And so I'll ask Councilwoman Mackey, because I do believe you were there, and maybe you could provide us a quick update of how that Fire Safe Council meeting went. Obviously, I was dealing with other fire related matters, so couldn't attend. So
I forgot I was listening to that Fire Safe Council meeting coming up Interstate 5. I attended all my meetings on Friday on Interstate 5. It was pretty interesting. I did want to ask you a question. They talked about the chipper program not being operational, and the lady from RCD, and I can't remember her name, said that they weren't operating because they couldn't get the inmates to work because of COVID. So they don't have any labor. So they are, and before this all happened, they were starting to ramp up to hire their own labor force for the chipper program. But unfortunately, they haven't done that yet. So now they're going into the process of hiring people to do the chipper program. It will take a week or two to get them hired, then another few weeks to train them. It could be 6 weeks before they have a chipper program back again, which to me is ridiculous. I also asked her the question, why can't you just contract out? And her comment to me was that it is more expensive to contract out than to hire somebody to do the job. Now, I find that a strange answer because it's always been cheaper to contract out than to put people on the payroll. That's a fact of life. But perhaps, at least in the interim, we could get contract help. But she's worried about using too much of the grant money. So my suggestion is to try and get more money from the county to try and supplement the chipper program. We need to get it in action now. And I guess Bob Snyder called in later, and he had missed the portion where I asked about the labor. And so he hadn't ever asked that question. He always was happy that he was just happy they were going to train people to do the program. So that was the main thing I got out of the program, other than the regular reports, is that the chipper program is dead in the water right now. And I think we need to do something about that.
Well, so a couple quick things. I am happy to agendize it and let us discuss it because I agree completely with you. I think that it's, in my opinion, there's been excuses after excuses. They are an independent government district that is funded to do it, and they've provided, and they've done it very well for decades. But the fact that it's been out of service. With some understandable issues related to the fact that the jail has had a number of outbreaks, and so they are restricting who's going in and going out. So I get that, but we are in this incredibly heightened fire time in history that we can't really afford it. I'll mention one real quick thing as part of this. I'll just stretch this reporting. I've been discussing with the Air District as well as with Recology, trying to do something similar that Nevada County does, and that is a day where residents can pack up all of their clippings and bring it to a single location within the city or multiple locations. And in Nevada County, their waste management then does kind of this, it's like a massive green waste haul day. It doesn't identify exactly this chipper issue, and I don't think supplants it either. But and Cheryl, maybe you and I can talk offline, but maybe that's something we need to discuss. Obviously, I put it on the agenda for the Fire Safe Council meeting after, some heated discussion at Medlars last week of the importance of it. you know, this council and our fire department, you know, is not staffed to do that, nor, you know, do we fund it. And if that's where we want to go, I would like to have that discussion, because I think we should be funded to do it. But I knowing the budget, I don't know where we pull that money from, though. If we were to get, let's say, some additional funding streams, I think that's a priority for us. And I think that's a reasonable conversation should the voters choose to increase our funding. But if you would like, Cheryl, again, you and I can chat, or if any of the other council members would like, I think adding this to our agenda and help figuring out how can we advocate or figure out a better way to do it. Because I will tell you, I understand the frustration that some of the residents have with the Resource Conservation District, because really it is week after week, month after month now of excuses, in my opinion. Again, I wasn't there, so I wasn't able to talk to, and it's Sarah Jones, the Resource Conservation District Executive Director. So we can chat later, but I appreciate, Cheryl, you attending since I was not able to be there. And again, if we want to, we can talk about how we can provide chipping program services to our community at another meeting. And
Yes, I look forward to that. I echo that. So thank you very much.
Well, maybe I'll get with Councilwoman Mackey and we can talk about too, maybe there's some other things we can do in the interim to bring to the council, whether it be a letter trying to pressure them to do something, whether it's connecting them with our county board of supervisors, because maybe there's something the county can do as well. Again, it's an independent district unrelated to the city or the county. So anyways, long story short, why don't we plan to put it on the agenda at the next meeting? Councilwoman Mackey, I'll reach out to you and maybe we can try to come up with plan B, because man, we're in the middle of August. There's smoke all around us. You know, I know there was a neighborhood in Robie Point that was brought up. I feel like I took the heat on Monday. That really wasn't the council's fault. You know, I think we have put together a plan to increase public safety funding as an example, should the voters choose to do so. But I don't think that we can afford not to be involved as a group in finding a solution. So with that, thank you, Councilwoman Mackey, for doing the Fire Safe Council update. Lastly, Amy, did your cat want to do a report out?
He's good, thank you.
Okay, thank you. If there is nothing else, then I will go ahead and adjourn the meeting, and we will see you all bright and early tomorrow at Medlar. So thank you very much, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.